4 times that people have tried and failed to ban Christmas. The Puritans famously tried to ban Christmas. What they didn't like was the Catholic Association, but more than that, they didn't like it because people were just using it as an excuse to get pissed and misbehave. Of course they were. That's always what we've done at Christmas. So in 1643, the Puritan Parliament in England passed an ordinance saying, look, you can do it, but just do it calmly. I think the phrase that they used was solemn humiliation, you needed solemn humiliation to observe Christmas Day. And weirdly, the British people didn't get that memo. They continued to get plastered and rip the knickers off one another. So the following year, the Puritans went, right, that's it. You've ruined it for everybody. No more Christmas. You can't do it anymore. And that did not go down well. In fact, there were riots. They were known as the Plum Pudding Riots, and they happened in, I think it was Canterbury, because the local authorities were ordered to make sure that everything was closed down and that everyone was basically in church and behaving themselves. And of course, they weren't doing that. So there was literal rioting and fighting in the street on Christmas Day. So it's not really that the Puritans banned Christmas. They banned people having a good time and celebrating Christmas. And they really didn't manage to do that either, because we were absolutely committed to having a good time. And obviously, when we kicked the Puritans out and we brought back Charles II, aka the Merry Monarch, he brought Christmas with him in a big way. But across the pond in America, the Puritans there tried to enforce fines for celebrating Christmas Day too. In fact, it wasn't until 1856 that the state of Massachusetts officially recognised Christmas as a public holiday. Revolutionary France tried to ban Christmas too, and they weren't so worried about people having a good time as they were about the Catholic Church. That was the bit they really didn't like, and they set about trying to dismantle the church's influence in France. The official state religion was changed to the cult of the supreme being. Churches were turned into temples of reason. They even did away with the Gregorian calendar, replacing all of the days with references to animals and to various occupations. So the 25th of December became Dog Day the 5th of Snowy. Traditional king cakes became liberty cakes, and anyone caught celebrating Christmas risked being arrested as a traitor to the revolution. Still didn't work though. People were celebrating it in secret, and as soon as Napoleon got his hands on the reins, Christmas came back big style. Nazi Germany. The Third Reich wasn't crazy about the influence of the church, but what they really didn't like was celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ, who was King of the Jews. They viewed it as a Jewish holiday and therefore un-Aryan. But they didn't so much ban it as try to push people towards a slightly different holiday, and they did that by bigging up the Germanic festival of Yule. And they pushed the idea that Yule was the real festival they should all be having, and Christmas had just come along and hijacked it from them, and so they were returning to their own roots. They tried to actually push the holiday to the date of the solar solstice. There's propaganda that shows Saint Nick being replaced by the god Odin. Stars on top of the Christmas tree were taken down and replaced with runic symbols, or with, I think it was called the Son of Odin, a sort of a similar symbol, but definitely not a Jewish one. But obviously all of that went to hell in a handbag, and then German Christmas came back in a big way. The Soviet Union did not like Christmas either, and it was the religion bit that they didn't like. I mean, after all, Karl Marx did say religion is the opium of the people. And under the communist regime, members of the clergy and those that continued to worship were arrested as enemies of the state. Now, this is not Father Christmas, this is the Russian Ded Moroz, which translates to Father Frost, and he comes from Slavic folklore. But under the early communist regime, he was out on his ear. Weirdly, it was Stalin that brought back Ded Moroz and Christmas festivities in 1935, when his popularity was seriously flagging after he'd managed to create a famine that killed millions. But he moved the festivities to New Year's Day to avoid any kind of religious associations. And New Year's Day remains the biggest winter festival in Russia to this day, and Ded Moroz has become this symbol of Russian heritage who must be protected from the corruption of Western influence at all costs. And that is 4 times people have tried and failed to cancel Christmas.